welcome to the Courageous Self-Care Podcast. I'm your host, Christina Marlette. On this show, I love to share ideas about strategic self-care that really moves the needle. It goes beyond bubble baths, chocolate, and wine. It's the stuff on the inside that makes a difference in our energy and in feeling fully alive. And because of that, it can be a little bit scary. It's uncomfortable, we often need help for it, and it changes your life. You can go to ChristinaMarlette.com to take the self-care style quiz, and you will find out which of the 4 archetypes you fall into for how you are dealing with your self-care practice or not right now. I would love to welcome my guest for today, Candace. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Candace.
All right, I'm Candace McKim, and I am the author of Yogini's Guide, Intuition is a Choice book, as well as Yogini's Guide to Intuition Oracle cards. And I help people connect with their intuition. I have been following my intuitive guidance my whole life, but didn't really realize it. Like I knew I was following that gut instinct, but until I wrote my book and titled it Intuition is a Choice, I didn't actually realize that that is exactly what it was. And I believe our intuition is just another one of our senses, the same as sight, touch, smell, sound, and there's one more. And what?
Taste.
Yes. Intuition is just another one of those senses. So that's what I do, is I help people connect to their intuition in lots of different ways.
That's so powerful. And I can identify with not really knowing about intuition, but acting on it. And for the longest time, I didn't even know that there was a word intuition. I thought there was being psychic, and I knew I didn't seem like the psychic people I had heard about on TV. So I just thought, okay, I'm not one of those things. And then eventually I learned about intuition and realized, oh my gosh, it's this wonderful world of guidance.
Yes, and we all have it.
Yes, right.
It's not this gift that some people get and some people don't. We all have it.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of developing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love to get our guest experts' opinion on, not opinion, what is your favorite self-care practice? That's what I'm asking.
My favorite self-care practice is meditation. And you may be groaning like, oh my God, we hear everything you do, they say you should be meditating for it. But I've been meditating since I was 13 years old. You would think it was in the 70s, so you'd think my parents were hippies, but they weren't. They were actually stressed out, self-employed parents of 3 teenagers. And so at that time, there wasn't a lot of options for women on how to deal with their stress. And so the doctor prescribed Valium. And my mom said, no, I don't want to take this. This is going to mess me up. I have to be functional. They were self-employed. They were business owners. And so they had watched on Johnny Carson, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and looked up transcendental meditation. And they took our whole family, the family of 5, to learn transcendental meditation. And so at 13 years old, I started meditating every day. And we think of meditation, and especially transcendental meditation, as a very rule-oriented meditation. And it can be. But I think because I learned it at such a young age, I've really developed and evolved it for what works for me. And so I am an afternoon meditator. And I did it when I was in high school, when I was in school. I would come home after school. When I was in university, I would do it at that time in the afternoon as well. So more around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when you're reaching for caffeine or sugar or something to boost you up to get you through the evening, that's when I meditate. And so then as a mom, I would meditate when the kids were napping. In the afternoon, when they were going to school, I would meditate before they came home from school, and before we did the whole crazy running around to the activities. And so it's always just really worked for me, the afternoon meditation. And I do make it really yummy for myself. I will make a nice cup of green tea, and I'll get a couple dates or nuts or some sort of snacky thing. And then I'll sit down and read for 5 minutes. And then so that it takes me out of my everyday busyness. And then I can go on and meditate. And I'm a 25 minute meditator, but I always set the clock for half an hour because I like extra 5 minutes at the beginning. And I'm a 20-minute meditator. So 5 minutes at the beginning, 5 minutes at the end, just for me.
Well, thank you for that very thorough description of how you meditate. I love that, because sometimes people hear about meditation and they think, oh, but I don't even know what to do. So that was a beautiful window of how you, like a glimpse in through the window of how you have made it work for you. And I love that you started a habit when you were young, because one of our non-negotiables in our house is that everyone meditates every day, and our kids are 9 and 12 right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have that daily practice, and we keep it short for our kids.
Yeah.
And my husband and I do longer ones, but it's so nice to learn it young.
Yes. And we have to do that for ourselves. Otherwise we just get burnt out. We get tired, and then you're not enjoying the after school activities. You're not enjoying the evening because you're so tired and just really want to veg out.
Yes.
Or that's how I would be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a free energy booster.
Yeah. And it slows down time. Like, people always ask me, how do you find time to meditate every day? And I said, you know what? If I don't eat lunch every day, I get cranky. I get hangry. And if I don't meditate every day, I get cranky. So I absolutely have to meditate. And it is a really pleasurable thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's taken a few years of being devoted to it for me to find the pleasure in it, but I do now. I really enjoy it. And I love that you said about being busy. And the thing that took me from a so-so meditator to an everyday, no matter what meditator was my mentors, Marcy Shimoff and Deborah Poneman, who I think Deborah studied with Maharishi Mahesh, whatever you said. And they said one time, if you're too busy to meditate, you're just too busy. And I thought, well, I don't want to be too busy to connect with the part of me that's connected with everything else. And so I decided, okay, I'm just going to make space in my day for it. And you're right, it does widen and broaden our experience with time.
Yeah, like you come out of meditation. So a lot of times, we just have the holidays, right? And so maybe you're busy, you're having company over, and you think, okay, well, I need to get the table set, and I need to get this done, and I need to get this done and this done. There's no way I can go and meditate, that I have to get ready for my guests. But if you go and meditate, then you come out and it's like time slows down, because all of a sudden you're in this slow mode, and it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Get set. Let's just put a pile of plates and a pile of cutlery here. And all of a sudden, like, none of that matters.
Right.
And it's just like, you're just like in this calm place, and then it spreads out to your whole family.
Yes. Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you for the, what's that called? No, I don't know the word right now.
Inspiration.
Yeah. The inspiration to meditate.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing I love to get our guests to do on the Courageous Self-Care podcast is share a story of everyday courage. And I'm going to ask you to do that in just a moment.
Okay.
First, I would love to invite our listeners, if you have a story of everyday courage, I would love to interview you too. And you can go to ChristinaMarlette.com and fill out the apply to be a guest button and fill out the application, and I'll be in touch with you. Okay, Candace, your turn.
Okay, well, my background is I have a degree in social work, and then I became a yoga therapist. And for the last 20 decades, I've been combining talk therapy with mind, body, spirit. And so it's a form of counseling. And I, in the last, 10 years, I've been doing lots of extra training on, where does my work want to go? What is my purpose? Where do I want to put my energy? And, what is my passion all about? And so one of the trainings I was doing, I got a really clear intuitive hit that I am here to work with women. I'm here to help empower women and help women, specifically women who have been violated. And so I got that intuitive hit, and I came home and I continued my work and continued seeing clients, and it started showing up more and more in my clientele. And I started recognizing that, okay, this is what I'm here to do. And then I actually sat down, and I remember the time very clearly. I was sitting on the deck with my husband having a cup of tea, and the energy around my clientele and the horrors of that they were going through really hit me. And I said to my husband, I don't know if I want to bring this energy into the household again at this time, because like I said, it reminded me of being a social worker with government social services. And so I made a conscious decision to kind of put it on the back burner at that point, and it immediately went away out of my clientele. So fast forward 2 years later, I got another really clear intuitive hit about an organization, and they were doing a global Save a challenge. So global meaning they choose a country and a cause, Seva meaning to be of service, and challenge. So the global part was to raise money for victims of sex trafficking in India. The Seva part was was for the victims of sex trafficking, and the challenge part was to raise $20,000 for this organization.
Wow.
And so I knew intuitively, instantly, I needed to do it, instantly. But then I started, because this is what happens. We get the intuitive hit. We know we have to do it, but then we start to second guess ourselves. Then we start to move through into fear. And so I went into the whole, how is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my business? Who am I to raise $20,000? I'm not a fundraiser. I've never done anything like that before. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, but I've never done anything like that before. And so it was like I had to move through that fear and discomfort and step into it. And so I heard the words coming out of my mouth. I was actually sitting on the hockey bench watching my son, one of my kids play hockey. All three of them played hockey at one point, but one of my sons played hockey. And I said to one of the other moms, I don't want to be on my deathbed, and wished that I had at least tried to do something for these little girls in India. Mm. The horror stories, right, of what we hear and what was going on over there. Little girls as young as 8 and 9 up to 18 years old. And I thought I didn't want to be on my deathbed and not to at least have tried. And so when I heard those words coming out of my mouth, I just had to step into it. And so I sent off the application form, and I reached out to people who had done my training. At that point, I was teaching a workshop. And so I reached out to all the participants in my workshop and asked them if they would come and support me, be part of my dream team. And as a result, I was the first person to raise the $20,000 out of 40 people. That I raised it in 9 months. It was just a little under 9 months. And because I believe that when we're following our intuition, we're living on purpose, right? We're getting the intuitive hits. It leads us to step after step after step of our purpose. And when we're on purpose, we're in a flow with the universe, with the divine, with our inner guidance, as well as energetic guidance and universal guidance, that it just falls into place so easily. And that's what happened for me. My dream team was amazing. We did all these events in Grand Prairie, and the community was amazing. And like I said, I raised the money in less than 9 months. And then as a result, I was going to go to India. And like I said, there was 40 people that all raised 20,000. So we collectively raised over $1 million. Wow. And that makes such a huge impact on so many different organizations in India. And just such an amazing dent in that problem.
Wow. Candace, if your goal was to cover me in goosebumps the whole time you were speaking, you succeeded.
Awesome. So I'm in a tank top and it's -39.
And I call them truth bumps, and I think I talk about them pretty much every time I do an interview. But yeah, it's an indication of intuition and being connected to the divine. And I love how you got the intuitive hit, which is the connection from the divine, at least in my opinion. And then you had all the human thoughts about it. Who am I to be able to do this? How am I going to do this? How is it going to affect everything? And when we can prioritize the initial message, which is what you did, then you found that you were completely guided in the experience, and you moved through that fear. And wow, what a courageous thing to raise $20,000. I love it.
Yeah. And it just led me to more and more things. So I got another intuitive hit 6 weeks before I was going to India, and it was to sell my studio. I got a really clear intuitive hit. It's time to sell your studio. And I had been teaching, in my community for 17 years. I taught the same classes. That's where I saw my clients. That's where I taught my workshops. And again, I got the clear intuitive hit that I needed to sell the studio. And then but then you start to second guess yourself again, right? You go through all of that fear. And I remember telling my husband, I think I'm going to sell a studio. And he's like, what are you doing? You love teaching yoga. This is your life. You're only going for, 6 weeks to India. What are you going to do when you come back? Like, are you crazy? And I'm like, maybe I am. And I love my students. I had this really, really strong connection with them. I was one of the first yoga instructors in my community. So I was friends with so many people. But I followed that intuitive hit. And 2 days before I left to go to India, I handed over my keys. And I never looked back. Like, I came home and I went through a month of, I called it wallowing, because I would go through anger and sadness about the oppression of the world, right? Not just India, because we know there's oppression in our world as well. But what it did is it gave me the opportunity, and it opened up time and space for me to create my deck of oracle cards and my book. And there's no way I would have had the time and space to do it if I hadn't. And really, I had already been writing the oracle cards because I would get intuition as to what the yoga postures meant on a spiritual level while I was teaching. And, but I had never really done anything with it. And so it gave me this time and the space I just started doing it to fill up time. And then it led to one thing to the next. And this is what happens when we're following our intuition, we're on purpose. And then as we're flowing in purpose, opportunities just keep coming and coming and coming. And it's amazing.
I love it. It's magical. Thank you so much for sharing your story of courage. I know that our listeners are really going to benefit from all the different layers that you shared. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
And somehow our time has flown by.
I feel it.
So we're going to wrap things up here. You can go take the self-care style quiz to learn your self-care style, and it is really, truly fascinating to see where you're at with it. So that's at ChristinaMarlette.com. And I want to remind you, or if this is your first time, we're here. Well, I am here on the podcast Monday through Friday, so be sure to come back and listen again. And lastly, this is what I actually want to remind you about, is that self-care isn't selfish. When you are prioritizing your own well-being on purpose, it doesn't just benefit you. It benefits everyone in your immediate circle, and it benefits the energy of the world. So go ahead and practice some courageous self-care. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to talking with you again soon.